Dive into the moves that were made in free agency yesterday. We'll play some fill in the blanks. Some names that you know. I don't know how big these moves are. RC, Joey Bosa to the Bills. That means what?
They're replacing one aging rusher with a less aging rusher. I don't necessarily know if this move moves them closer to winning a championship than finding someone on the outside who could be younger, who they can pair with Rousseau and have him be available each and every week. We know that Joey Bosa has been battling injuries. Early on in his career, he was one of the best rushers in football. I don't believe that this helps Sean McDermott's team win a championship in the AFC.
All right, another aging star, Domonique. DeAndre Hopkins signs in Baltimore yesterday. So D-Hop to the Ravens means what?
He gonna eat a lot of crab cakes? I don't know. I think DeAndre Hopkins, maybe Zay Flowers gets the veteran leadership that will help him take it to the next level. But I think DeAndre Hopkins is not quite the player that we remember that his name would suggest. So I think his addition there is probably going to be a lot more about leadership and than production. And I think that's a good thing for DeAndre Hopkins.
Maybe coaching kind of?
I think he's going to play. He's going to make plays, but I don't imagine he's not a number one at this point by any stretch. Obviously, and we saw with Kansas City, it didn't seem to make a huge impact with the exception of that one game.
All right, then let's get to the quarterback move that intrigued me for a number of reasons yesterday, Graziano. Daniel Jones to Indianapolis means what?
Already the last chance in Indianapolis for Anthony Richardson. Like, he's going to have to beat out Daniel Jones to keep his starting job. And if he can't do it, then I think the Colts go into, year 3 of Anthony Richardson thinking that he's probably not their guy long term. So Daniel Jones is there to push Anthony Richardson to play in case Anthony Richardson can't. And if Richardson can't beat him out, then he's not living up to his number 4 overall pick billing for the Colts.
All right, so Jones is the latest domino to fall in the quarterback carousel. You see all these dominoes here.
That's well done.
So you see the ones that are still standing. We put Kirk Cousins up there because you never know what's going to wind up happening with him. Russell Wilson and, of course, Aaron Rodgers. So here's my theorem. We thought Daniel Jones would stay in Minnesota. We think Minnesota wanted to keep Daniel Jones.
Tried.
And I think Daniel Jones recognized maybe that he has a better chance to be the starting quarterback in Indy than he did in Minnesota, where they've got last year's number 10 overall pick, J.J. McCarthy. Right. So I have been trying to sell you all week long, Graziano, on a scenario that the reason it is taking what feels like a very long time for Aaron Rodgers to go to Pittsburgh is because he has another option he's hoping will come to him. And maybe that move was one that sends us in that direction.
Because if there's even a 1% chance that it could be Minnesota, I think Aaron Rodgers wants to leave that door open. And look, if you're the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold left and Daniel Jones left and J.J. McCarthy coming off an injury, you're still not sure when he's going to be ready and you don't want to rush him, you're trying to bring in a veteran quarterback. Now, Aaron Rodgers is a whole different animal, but once Daniel Jones signs with the Colts, the discussion in Minneapolis' building has to be, do we try this? Like, what are our options? Lay out every single option that we possibly have. So that name comes up in those conversations. I don't think it's going to happen, but...
it'd be irresponsible not to consider it.
But I think it'd also be irresponsible to do it.
You beat me to my punchline, bro. Slow down. I've done this before. I know what I'm doing here, man.
My bad.
It would also be irresponsible for them to bring Aaron Rodgers in that building with a young quarterback that is going to make mistakes. It'd be really tough, assuming that J.J. McCarthy's going to be their starter. It's going to be really tough for him to have a rocky start and have Aaron Rodgers sitting behind him, despite the fact that Aaron Rodgers wasn't great last season. He's still Aaron damn Rodgers.
If Minnesota were to do this, and I still think it's unlikely that they do, it would represent a blowing up of the J.J. McCarthy plan.
Situation.
Like, I don't think, you don't bring it in, thank you. We've been doing this so long, we finished each other's sentences. No, I think that's the whole thing, because Aaron Rodgers would be coming in there to play. So again, I don't think in the end they do it, but as of last night, it was like, it's not a 0% chance.
So let me preface my thought by asking a question. Think back to a year ago today. How long ago does that seem like? All right? A year has become a lifetime in the society in which we live, right? In the world in which we live today, a year is forever. So I think you take everything in life year to year, certainly in sports. Right. This coming year, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, and you were pretty close, you went into the last game of the NFL regular season with a win away from being the number 1 seed in the NFC. This coming year, do you have a better chance of winning the championship with Aaron Rodgers or J.J. McCarthy as your quarterback?
Well, I think the first thing is, if you bring Aaron Rodgers into your building, Aaron Rodgers now becomes the most important person in your building to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
And so,
regardless of the building.
Regardless of the building.
Right.
And so now, if you're Kevin O'Connell, is that something you want to deal with when you know J.J. McCarthy is going to be your future? Not because you've watched him play, not because you believe in him, but because you picked him in the top 10. And when you pick him in the top 10, at some point you saying, J.J. McCarthy, you're going to get an opportunity to be the franchise quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. Do you blow that plan up for the Aaron Rodgers we saw last year?
Right.
And I listened to Dan talk early on in the meeting, and I love the way that he prefaced it. Aaron Rodgers didn't kill that team because he was a cancer in the locker room.
The Jets,
Aaron Rodgers killed the New York Jets because he couldn't play. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers and believe to yourself that he could be a reclamation project, right, that Kevin O'Connell can say to himself, you saw what I did with Sam Darnold for a year, watch what I do with Aaron Rodgers, you know what I'd say? Well, do that same thing with J.J. McCarthy, the one we drafted top 10 and you believed in enough to say that he probably would have started last year. I don't believe you make this move. You don't get to make a move year to year when you draft a quarterback in the top 10 the year before.
What do you think?
I mean, I think it would be representing giving up on J.J. McCarthy, which is a hard thing to do. And I know that you would say that they would bring him in and say that Aaron Rodgers is the backup or whatever, and it's just
No,
1
no,
year.
he wouldn't be the backup. You'd be bringing in Rodgers to play. You take your shot for a year. How many quarterbacks have sat for 2 years? Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers sat for longer than that. Quarterbacks sit sometimes.
Come on, Greeny. We recognize that that's an entirely different situation. The cupboard is bare. They have one quarterback there. For them to go out and get a quarterback, go get Jacoby Brissett. That says to J.J. McCarthy,
you're the starter. You the guy.
Right. Go get
the other part is too, though, like everybody brings up, like we love to bring up the fact that Jordan Love sat and that Aaron Rodgers sat, but there were Hall of Famers in the prime of their careers when these guys was drafted, which is why those guys were pissed off that you drafted them, because they knew at that point they were still the guy.
If bringing in Daniel Jones to compete with Anthony Richardson suggests that Anthony Richardson might be on the hot seat, I think bringing Aaron Rodgers suggests to J.J. McCarthy that maybe we don't want you.
Minnesota has built their plan around the idea of we have a quarterback on a rookie contract who's going to play at some point soon. They signed Justin Jefferson to the biggest wide receiver deal. If you look at their free agent activity last year and this year, they are dishing out big money. If Aaron Rodgers were to go to Minnesota, I think he would have to accept a lot less money than what Pittsburgh or the Giants is offering him. Maybe he would. At this point in his career, maybe money's not that big a deal to him.
It's high risk. Like, I get your point, Greeny, is you think that maybe Aaron Rodgers right now increases their potential winning the Super Bowl this year, but it completely demolishes.
And then listen. I don't know. On that note, if you truly feel, and maybe you feel like this, Greeny, maybe they feel like this in Minnesota. If you truly feel you can go win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers and you can't with J.J. McCarthy, then you do it. But how long are we going to kick the J.J. McCarthy plan down the road? Because now with Sam Darnold, you had a decision to make in the offseason. Is Sam worth bringing back? You have the conversation and not. If Aaron Rodgers comes in here and you go to the NFC Championship, do we say again, hey, JJ, we're going to put you on hold one more year because Aaron got us to the NFC Championship? Or when does J.J. McCarthy get an opportunity to show you he's worth the job?
I would say I'd love to have that problem. What's the last time Minnesota was in the NFC Championship?
But you love to have that problem if you got Aaron Rodgers 6 years ago.
That's
I get
what I'm saying. There's no evidence that Aaron Rodgers is your key to get to the Super Bowl. He's won the Super Bowl one time. He's
been one time.
Years ago.
That's fair.
There are 17 quarterbacks that have won playoff games more recently than Aaron Rodgers has.
I'm not suggesting that they should do it. I'm suggesting he's hoping they do it, and I think that's why this is taking a little time. What happens, Daniel Jones leaves, the Vikings convene, and what are all the options? Let's go through all the options. I'm sure every name was said in there yesterday. The question is whether they got to a hard no on this particular
If Daniel
option.
Jones would have stayed in Minnesota, Dan, from what you're hearing, would he have been able to compete for a starting job, or he would have been the backup?
The way they're looking at it, as I understand it, is they want to play J.J. McCarthy when he's ready, but not a minute sooner.
Okay.
Right? So, like, if he needs more time coming off the injury, or if he needs more developmental time, you want somebody who can play in the meantime. That's what Sam Darnold was supposed to be for them last year, and then McCarthy gets hurt. So that's the idea. That's why Aaron Rodgers would represent a significant departure from the plan, because Aaron Rodgers is in there, McCarthy's ready to go. You're not benching Aaron Rodgers for him.
All right, we're back on Get Up, and here we go with Grazianotes. Here's what I've charged Dan to do. There have been so many things that have happened that have gotten a lot of attention in the NFL the last few days. I wanted him to give us some notes that are a little bit under the radar but important. Dan, what are they doing in San Francisco?
Yeah, it's a reset in terms of their roster building philosophy, their spending philosophy. They've let a lot of guys walk out the door. Deebo Samuel was traded. Dre Greenlaw signs with Denver. They're cutting Kyle Juszczyk. A lot of guys who have been central to their success. They had the highest cash spend of any team last year, and they didn't make the playoffs. So they're trying to recalibrate that. They already have over $80 million in dead money assigned to their cap for this year. So it's a hard reset. We've seen teams do it. 2 years ago, the Rams did it and the Buccaneers did it, and they both made the playoffs. So the 49ers would tell you it's not like a rebuild. And a lot of their core guys, like McCaffrey, Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, they're all still there. But it's been more about who's leaving than who's coming in San Francisco so
Cindy,
far.
let's do B7. I mean, you could field half a team with the players that have left San Francisco this year. Again, Deebo Samuel, Kyle Juszczyk. Look at all of these names. I mean, that's a lot of players and a lot of them that you know. Defense, offensive line, running backs. I guess the question is, do you believe right now, Ryan Clark, that what they should entertain doing is trading Christian McCaffrey?
Ooh.
And Christian McCaffrey is at the tail end of being one of the genuinely great difference-making players in the National Football League. And if you were doing a little bit of a reset here, why not go all the way?
I would absolutely trade Christian McCaffrey, and I would try to get as much as I could possibly get for him. When you look at what Kyle Shanahan has been able to do, it's run the football. And I know we thought last year they missed some of the things with the versatility of Christian McCaffrey, but when you trade Juszczyk, you let some of that versatility go. You let some of the things you can do formationally go. And so why not change your entire philosophy from thinking about Christian McCaffrey as this Swiss Army knife, getting pieces for him and allowing guys like Ricky Pearsall to touch the football more with running the football and doing different things on quick screens, adding other players based on the assets that you could get for them. Also understanding you're looking for more available players than Christian McCaffrey was last year. You had a good stretch with him. You took your run at the Super Bowl. You didn't get it. If you're going to rebuild completely.
What do you think? I mean, I'm not sure. I think the name Christian McCaffrey, it sounds like it can get you a lot more than Christian McCaffrey can actually get you, because the other teams actually also know that Christian McCaffrey was injured a bunch last year, and they know the history of the running back position. So I wouldn't hate the idea of taking some calls, but I honestly think that he's probably worth more to you than he is to any other team out there. Maybe later in the season, he becomes more valuable. He shows healthy, and there's a team that's like, hey, we're closer than we think. We need a real difference maker. Then maybe you consider trading.
The words on the screen said the Brock Purdy pending extension plays into this. Are they going to pay him $50 million a year?
Well, certainly he would hope to get more than that, given the look. He had the Trevor Lawrence contract was in his favor, right? Because Trevor Lawrence never been to the conference championship game, never been to the Super Bowl, never finished first in QBR at $55 million. Now that Josh Allen, the reigning MVP, gets $55, that kind of hurts his argument to get more than that. So we'll see. They're going to work on it, and I think they probably do extend him at some point this offseason. But the model changes. You talk about losing a Swiss Army knife in Christian McCaffrey. Deebo was another Swiss Army knife that is already gone. Whatever is, and Kyle Juszczyk has been there the whole time that Kyle Shanahan has. He's going to have to change a lot about his offense just based on the personnel change.
Well, I mean, you think about New Edition, right? When they lost Bobby Brown, they were able to give you Johnny Gill.
Yeah.
But then once Ralph Tresvant left, that's how we got Bell Biv DeVoe. And all Bell Biv DeVoe gave us was poison. Right? They only gave us one hit. Now, it was a hell of a hit, though.
Never trusted in a smile.
Never trust smiling, but and a smile. You can get one or the other.
Separately, but you put them together and you don't want to trust it.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
But like the big thing is this though, like you don't get to lose all of these players and stay the same. Yeah. You don't get to play the same tunes. You don't get to go on the same tours. And that's what the San Francisco 49ers are trying to do. If you're going to rebuild, in my opinion, say we're going to pay Brock Purdy and now we're going to build this team the best we can without some of the stalwarts we had year to year.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to give some credit to what Shanahan has done over the years. They generate offense. I think the scarier thing, honestly, is that they've always had a really good defense there. Yeah. And all those players, the defense wasn't great the last couple of years, and all those players leaving, what Robert Saleh is going to be able to do there on defense might determine how much longer this run last.
Let me quickly go to the Hendrickson one because we're going to run out of time here, and I want to just make sure we understand what's going on in Cincinnati because Joe Burrow at the Super Bowl gave Laura Rutledge like an extremely detailed, like he had spreadsheets. He had clearly done like Microsoft Excel. He had it figured out how they were going to pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson, and then 10 minutes later, Trey Hendrickson is getting traded, and he hasn't been yet.
He hasn't.
So what's going on there?
He's been given permission to find, explore trades, find a team that's willing to pay him the contract he's looking for, and also give the Bengals enough to justify trading him. To this point, he has not found that. He may still, but it's also possible that this works out where he doesn't find what he's looking for, and he goes back to the Bengals, who were trying to sign him prior to this. So this isn't a holding pattern. There are teams interested. Washington Commanders are one of the prominent teams that has been interested in Trey Hendrickson. My understanding is so far, teams are still turned off by the Bengals' asking price, especially considering the acquisition would have to come with a new contract for Trey Hendrickson, who's 30 years old, even though he did just lead the league in sacks. So it's a tricky situation. It could certainly end up with him being traded.
They kind of did this to Trey Hendrickson to say, hey, go see what the market looks like, and now we can sign you for what we are willing to pay.
I do. It's like, look, if you think you're worth X and we think you're not, go find X, right? And if you do, God bless you. Like, we'll figure it out. If you don't, then consider, like, we made you what we thought was a nice offer. Maybe consider coming back and taking that.
They got a lot of people to pay. They've taken a long time to pay them. There's a history of that organization being uncomfortable with making those commitments. I think for what you have in Joe Burrow, he came into the league later than a lot of players do. He's had a little bit more injuries than you expect for a quarterback. Like, this window is small, and I'm really concerned that they are going to blow it, and that those Aaron Donald pressures at the end of that game might have been the closest that this team was going to get to the Super Bowl with an all-time great quarterback.